morning. It is Wednesday, May 20th, 2015. This is your morning edition on I-24 News. Coming up later today, EU Foreign Policy Chief Federica Mogherini is on her way to Israel and the Palestinian Authority. The European leader is set to meet with the new Israeli government and discuss the status quo in the peace process with the Palestinians. A new report by the International Federation for Human Rights says Egyptian security forces are using sexual violence against detainees on a massive scale. And later on the show, hallelujah, it is the time. The 2015 Eurovision Song Contest starts in Vienna. Good morning, I'm Yael Levi, and we begin in Israel, where European Union Foreign Policy Chief Federica Mogherini, who is scheduled to arrive in the country later today, said en route to the region that the status quo in the peace process between Israel and the Palestinians is not an option. Mogherini's visit to Jerusalem and Ramallah will come only 1 week after the new right-wing government, led by Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, was sworn in. She will be she'll be one of the first European leaders to meet with the new government in a possible case study on the sort of treatment the new government can expect from the international community. To further discuss this, we are joined in studio by I-24 News diplomatic correspondent Tal Shalev. Tal, good morning to you. Before we break it down, let's take a look at the following report and discuss.
We worked very hard, but frankly, the politics inside of Israel and the politics among the Palestinians as well made it very difficult for each side to trust each other enough to make that leap.
While the U.S. seems to be losing faith in the possibility of peace in the Middle East, the EU aims at filling the vacuum, and its approach is unequivocal. The status quo is unacceptable. On Wednesday and Thursday, EU Foreign Policy Chief Federica Mogherini will visit both Jerusalem and Ramallah, meeting Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas with a very obvious goal: rejuvenating the peace talks. 6 months into her tenure, Mogherini, whose very first visit in her post was to Israel and the Palestinian Authority, is eager to leverage Europe's position as Israel's biggest trading partner and as the Palestinians' main aid donor. Only on Monday, she stated the European Union wants a more active role in achieving a two-state solution. In the meantime, the French-led peace initiative is moving forward as well, but the Palestinian side is the one to raise its reservations.
Obviously, we welcome these efforts positively, but there is an Arab committee made of 5 Arab countries in charge of these affairs, with France and the other countries.
The European impatience with Netanyahu, especially in light of his newly formed right-wing government, has been steadily growing, with many European states recognizing a Palestinian state, with the latest being the Vatican last week. Netanyahu, however, doesn't seem to be getting the signs, nominating as his pointman on the peace talks new Interior Minister Silvan Shalom, who previously stated he did not believe in the two-state solution. Mogherini will be facing a challenge many had failed at before, at a point which both sides are wallowing in their own internal chaos.
We're also joined on the phone by Reshet Bet Arab Affairs correspondent Eran Zinger. Eran, good morning to you.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning. I'd love for you to be part of this discussion. So listen up as we turn first to Tal Shalev. Tal, Mogherini in the region very quickly after the Israeli government was sworn in. Is that intended?
Yes, well, Europe has been waiting on the sidelines for the past 6 months because of the Israeli elections, but this pressure is actually long overdue. And as we see the U.S. actually taking, or at least signaling it's taking a step back from this peace process for the time being, we do see the EU stepping up its pressure. And Mogherini, as mentioned in the report, has signaled from the very beginning of her post that she wants to take a more active role, a different role, maybe to take the role of the mediator again for the EU. She arrived here immediately after after she entered her post, and then Israeli elections came, so now she's back to try and resume some kind of dialogue between Israel and the Palestinians. And she also has Gaza on her mind, the reconstruction of Gaza, a burning issue that is also on the table. So these will be the 2 main issues on the table for the visit.
And Eran Zinger, Reshet Bet Arab Affairs correspondent, when it comes to the side of the Palestinian Authority, as Tal Shalev mentioned, it appears as if the American president, as he gestured several days ago ago, is given up or, has said that in the next year he doesn't see any kind of agreement signed between Israel and Palestine. So it's up to the Europeans. Are the Palestinians or the Palestinian Authority putting their faith in the European Union to try and push this forward? And if not, what do you think can happen on the ground when it comes to the Palestinian Authority?
No doubt that the Palestinians are hoping that their only hope is the European efforts or the European pressure on Israel. Because, as Tal has just mentioned, the Americans are changing the tone. They're changing their music. They're saying that the guilt or the blame is not only on Israel. The blame is also on the Palestinian side. In other words, the White House is changing its pressure. It's reducing its pressure on Israel when it comes to the Palestinian issue, because the White House is now only focusing on the Iranian issue. On the other hand, the Arab nations, the Arab League, has also reduced the pressure on Israel and on the Americans regarding the Palestinian issue, because everybody is now dealing with the Houthis in Yemen, with ISIS, with the comeback of ISIS in northern Iraq. In other words, the only hope the Palestinians have right now is the European side. And I think that the Palestinians are beginning to feel that this is a major or a dramatic time for them, because all the support they had so far from the Arabs, from the Americans, is now gone. And I believe that they will do everything they can in order to convince Mogherini and all the other European elements that they must do everything they can, because they're the only hope, as I said.
At this point, Iran, you're staying with us, Tal. So let's break it down. So Israel-Palestine. If it's true what Iran Zinger says, and presumably so, I'm assuming that is something that Benjamin Netanyahu is banking on, because that describes kind of a situation that helps him maintain the status quo. Or what is the Israeli government looking to do in face of the European Union pressure, and does Netanyahu even care?
Well, he cares very much, and I think one of the things that Israel is starting to understand, at least in the international arena and in the image arena, is that the status quo is unsustainable, because every recognition, every move, every symbolic moves is a political victory for Abbas. So as long as Abbas continues in the international community with unilateral steps and even just raising the issue, just like we're seeing with the Soccer Federation, FIFA, we have the ICC, we are Abbas is continuing with his efforts to internationalize the conflict, while Netanyahu does not want that to happen, just because it's a political gain for Abbas. So Netanyahu doesn't have much to give to Mogherini. In the past few days, he has been quoted as saying that he does want to resume talks, but the question is, can he stand any preconditions that Abbas will be setting for resuming talks? And Netanyahu has signaled in various moves with this narrow right-wing government that the two-state solution is not very much on the table, as we heard appointing Silvan Shalom for the point man for the talks with the Palestinians, as well as the deputy foreign minister who has been appointed, who is a proponent of annexing the West Bank. So it's definitely a challenge for Netanyahu. It's his first challenge, but on the other hand, he also will be using the fact that he can point the blame to Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas, and it's going to be a blame game in these negotiations in the next 2 days when Mogherini meets Abbas and when she meets Netanyahu.
A blame game that we're familiar with in many ways. And finally, Mr. Zinger, to you before we move on with the new Israeli government, if I'm looking at the Palestinian Authority, and we're looking at, I'm not even saying the umpteenth attempt at negotiations, but all these international moves of Abbas, at the end of the day, the Palestinian people themselves know it's not bringing them closer to a state. Is there a chance, if all of this fails, that we're looking at a possibility of an uprising on the ground if the Palestinian people feel that there's nothing else down the line, or are even the Palestinian people in the West Bank, so disillusioned and tired?
I think that on the one hand, the Palestinians, and especially Palestinians living in the West Bank, are seeing and are looking at what's going on right now, and they're starting to lose hope. But it doesn't necessarily mean that another uprising, another intifada is on its way, because they know what's going on around them. And you can say, and I'll agree with what you've just said about this conflict going on between the Israeli government and the Palestinian government. For instance, the the attempts by the Palestinian president to go to The Hague and to deal with Israel in the international arena. But Abu Mazen, Mahmoud Abbas, also has his own red lines. By the time that he is attacking Israel, and he's doing everything he can in order to boycott Israel, in order to combat Israel in the international arena, there is one red line that he will never cross, and I'm talking about the security coordination. The fact that the Palestinian security forces and the Israeli security forces are still working together because there is a joint interest here. Mahmoud Abbas and the Palestinian Authority sitting in Ramallah don't want Hamas to take over the West Bank. So this is this complicated issue here. On the one hand, we will fight Israel, they say, but on the other hand, we need Israel because we know that without Israel, we have no chance.
The authority will not survive itself. A very valid point. Mr. Zinger, thank you very much for joining us this morning. And Talia, you.
I just wanted to add that one of the problems, it's not only the problem of no dialogue between Israel and the Palestinians, there's also an issue on what is the situation on the ground. And since Europe has been expressing much concern about the freedom of movement for Palestinians in the West Bank, between Gaza and the West Bank. So a report this morning, the headline in the Haaretz newspaper is not what we might say the best welcome gift for Federica Mogherini.
No, it's great. I'm going to hold this up as you say what it says.
That Israel launched a 3-month pilot program to separate Israeli and Palestinian bus travel in the West Bank. So this is what is welcoming Mogherini, and it probably will be coming
into
up
the country. And one of those lines that immediately, the critics will immediately say, "There you go, apartheid," and this is the Israeli modus operandi in the West Bank, etc.
Well, this will probably be an interesting case that will be probably also challenged in the High Court. So it's definitely going to be on the table. This question, if this report is
indeed correct. But as you mentioned, the day before the arrival of the EU Foreign Affairs Chief Federica Mogherini in Israel, as part of a European push to play a major role in restarting the peace process, or lack thereof, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu handed Silvan Shalom, the new Interior Minister, responsibility for peace talks with the Palestinian Authority, should they ever resume. The position of Foreign Minister is now held by Netanyahu himself, obviously left still open. Let's take a look at Tal Shalev's next report about the government Mogherini is about to meet, and then take it from there.
It was one of the most desired jobs in Israel's 34th government. Almost everyone was fighting for it. But Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu decided to keep it for himself. So despite growing international pressure on Israel, the Foreign Ministry, with more than 1,000 diplomats at home and abroad, was left without a head. In the wake of constant challenges to Israel's legitimacy and crucial strategic issues on the table, many believe that a full-time foreign minister is a must. But politics came into play. Despite vocal demands from his fellow Likud party members for the prestigious post, Netanyahu repeatedly explained he is keeping it vacant in order to lure future potential partners to expand his narrow and shaky coalition, primarily Zionist Union leader Isaac Herzog. Meanwhile, he decided to divide the foreign affairs responsibilities between not one, not two, but 3 or even 4 different ministers. Interior Minister Silvan Shalom will now be handling the contacts with the Palestinians and overseeing the strategic dialogue with the United States. Energy Minister Yuval Steinitz will be in charge of the Iranian file. Immigration and Absorption Minister Zev Elkin will assume responsibility for strategic affairs, and Education Minister Naftali Bennett for ties with the Jewish diaspora. Confused? So are we. Shalom's appointment, taking over for Tzipi Livni as the point man for the peace talks, has raised many eyebrows due to the fact that he has never endorsed the two-state solution. Palestinian officials claim it doesn't matter who will represent Israel because Prime Minister Netanyahu isn't interested in peace. That might be questioned, but one thing is sure. Netanyahu might have dished out titles and responsibilities, but he is still the one calling the shots. Well, just to explain, Netanyahu is still the one calling the shots also on the Palestinian issue. Silvan Shalom will be filling in for Tzipi Livni. We can debate that lengthily if that is possible. But in any case, he will still be accompanied by Isaac Molcho, who is Netanyahu's special envoy, meaning Netanyahu is the one calling the shots, is the one making the decisions. And in the past few days, he has been briefing that he actually wants to talk to the Palestinians, and we do hear him talk about regional alliances. he is seeking for a larger arrangement, a more regional arrangement. It'll be interesting to see if Netanyahu can maneuver around this and for how much longer.
And for how much longer. Tal Shalev, thank you for enlightening us on this issue as we move along. A new report released by the International Federation for Human Rights claims that Egyptian security forces have stepped up sexual violence since the military overthrew the country's first freely elected president in 2013. Victims include members of NGOs, students, women, and those perceived as endangering the moral order, in quotation, so to speak, according to that report. We're joined in studio by visiting fellow Egypt expert at the INSS, Zach Gold. Good morning to you. Before we break it down, let's take a look at the following report.
2 years into Abdel Fattah al-Sisi's term as Egypt's president, his military rule sees women in the country having a bigger role in public protests, but fewer rights as civilians. A new report shows that sexual violence against citizens in Egypt is rising alarmingly. The survey by the International Federation for Human Rights notes that reported cases of sexual assault on women, men, and children in Egypt have increased since 2013. The most common perpetrators: police, intelligence officers, and members of the military. The cases have mounted since the 2013 military coup that saw al-Sisi assume power in Egypt. The report accuses the al-Sisi administration of using sexual violence to quash anti-government protests. The statistics are disturbing. Documented cases detail civilians complaining about sexual assault, rape by one or more members of police, sex-based defamation and blackmail, and invasive virginity tests of female protesters. In 2013, an Egyptian military court acquitted an army doctor accused of conducting virginity tests on Egyptian women in a case that sparked a national outcry. The acquittal fueled claims that the al-Sisi administration is intentionally lax in combating sexual crimes. Egypt denies the accusations of sexual abuse by its security forces. Spokesmen for the Egyptian Interior Ministry and military said they wish to study the report before delivering an official response.
We're going to go first straight to Cairo. We're joined by freelance journalist Kimberly Adams. Kimberly, good morning to you.
Good morning.
Now, a very damning report, a very troubling report. At the end of the day, also, Egypt, I think, is known as one of the countries in the Middle East where there's about 80% to begin with of sexual harassment against women. But when it comes to this report, is there even any way to get a reaction from the current Egyptian administration to whether it's true, and if so, if they're going to do anything about it?
Well, as you heard in that report just now, the Egyptian government is saying that they need time to study the report before they issue any kind of response. And that statistic that you mentioned, that 80% cases of sexual harassment in the Middle East, in Egypt, it's actually worse. A study by the United Nations Women a few years ago actually found that more than 99% of women, just about everyone, has reported some kind of incidents of sexual harassment. However, in terms of this report in particular, the Egyptian government has not generally responded well to criticisms of the police forces or security forces, and they claim that they have been doing a lot of new initiatives to combat sexual harassment in the country.
Kimberly, I would love for you to stay with us as I turn to Zach Gold of the INSS. Looking at that, and I just want to touch again on the current Egyptian administration, because we've seen, or we've heard reported, a breakdown of free media in Egypt now that it was that free to begin with, and then we're looking at that. Is Sisi even going to deal with something like this?
Sure. I mean, this goes to what struck me about the report was the number of times the word impunity showed up. In a 25-page report, impunity and the lack of any accountability was mentioned 15 times. In a 25-page report. And really this comes down to, let alone the issue of sexual violence with the authorities. And of course, we should note that the report doesn't mention that top leaders were aware or involved, simply that they allowed it to happen and they weren't cracking down on cases. But certainly the general situation for NGOs, for civil society, is a real problem. And this comes back to what the Egyptians rose up for in 2011 to begin with. If we think about Khalid Said, he was a middle-class, educated individual who was killed by police forces, by police brutality. And it was that sort of situation where the population said, oh, we knew they did these sorts of things to the Islamists, but we can't believe they did them to us as well. And so part of this report talks about, not just these sorts of harassments and assaults against Islamists, but against the general population.
The general population, which is an interesting point to ask Kimberly. I'm wondering with you, is there an outcry within the population of Egypt? Is there, discontent regarding situations as such or reports as such, or is that not even felt on the street?
It's hard to determine what exactly is being felt on the street right now because protests now are completely banned, and really people seem to be not engaging in the type of protest activities that we saw during the revolution, during the ouster of Morsi and the subsequent crackdown on Islamists. People are genuinely concerned and afraid to protest, and they don't. People are also tired of protesting. And so even though people know sexual assaults and harassment are a huge problem, it really takes a high threshold now to get people out into the streets due to the crackdown and the fact that it is known people who are arrested this type of sexual and other kinds of violence.
No, definitely. And you mentioned a very correct point. People are tired of protesting is one of the saddest things we've heard about the Arab Spring. One can see that happening in Egypt after 2 rounds of that. But Zach, before I ask you the next question, you wanted to say?
Sure. If I can just build on Kimberly's point, certainly the sexual assault among detainees and in Egypt generally is not new. The report itself notes these go back into the Mubarak administration. Of course, what the report notes is a vast increase. Of course, there has been a vast increase since 2013 in arrests and in crackdowns generally. So that coincides with the increase we've seen in this report.
And jumping up from Kimberly's words, who is still with us, we've seen an increase, and you said something very correct, that, it's looking at Sisi as basically becoming another Mubarak, if not already. It's kind of the same regime that we know and the Egyptians know from before 2011. It feels as if Tahrir's revolution, January 25th, has been completely erased.
Yeah.
Where's Egypt heading with that?
It's difficult. One of the points that is made in this report is that it was difficult to verify a lot of things, and I think that we're not going to see a response from the government because the report points to a lack of trust between the authorities and between the Muslim Brotherhood opposition. A lot of the reports, a lot of the incidents reported in this paper come from the Muslim Brotherhood, from Brotherhood-aligned NGOs. So I think that because of that lack of trust, it would be easy for the government to simply wave it off and say, well, this is simply a campaign by the Brotherhood and their supporters to delegitimize the government. And I think that's one of the more tragic things, is that there's a lack of civil society generally in the country right now.
No, in the country right now. Kimberly, I'm wondering with you if you would agree, and also my question to you, Kimberly, is one thing I know and remember so very well about Egypt from the times I've been there, is that the reason, and this is me theorizing, that it's so easy for the military regime to maintain power or maybe erase revolution is the fact that the people of Egypt adore the military and the security forces. Are they still, and I'm going to simplify this in layman's terms, is the military still regarded in the streets as, the be-all, or are they loved as they usually are, even with these cases being reported?
So first of all, in regards to the earlier point of whether or not the government is going to respond due to the lack of trust with these organizations that are making these reports, he's right. It's unlikely that the government is going to give any kind of validity to this report, especially with some of these mass death sentences that we've seen and other international criticism of Egyptian policies. The government has issued responses that basically say the foreign media is out to get us. These organizations and these media organizations and human rights organizations have no right to criticize us, and they're interfering with our freedom and democracy. That's been the line from the Egyptian government. Also important to point out that even though this report mentions the sharp escalation of sexual violence against protesters and students and even children and minors in some cases since the Sisi regime took office, that this also occurred during the the administration of Morsi and the Muslim Brotherhood, when they said that the Islamists were going after secular activists and Christians. In regards to the point of the popularity of the military, since Morsi's ouster and just in general, yes, the military-backed government rode to power on extreme public popular support. At the same time, people are very concerned at some of these things that they've seen since the government has come into power, with crackdown on secular activists, violence in the streets, but at the same time, the economy is improving and people are seeing security return back to normal. After such a long period of instability, tourists are starting to come back. They're seeing economic investment in the country, and people who've been struggling economically and socially for quite some time now and who are tired of those protests, I think are willing to at least give the military a chance, as they view it, to stabilize things before they rush back out into the streets.
Kimberly, thank you so much for joining us this morning. A very enlightening and in-depth information coming straight from Cairo. Zach, I want to conclude with you. You shook your head when you said tourism, yes or no, but I'm assuming that even just if 2 tourists are still coming back into Egypt, that's a good thing given the last several years. But where is Egypt heading? Because Sisi, it looks like he's trying to, and it clearly doesn't look like it, he's solidifying, consolidating his power from within. But in the regional play, because the Middle East is changing, will he be able to maintain that?
Yeah, and this is one of the things that Kimberly talks about. People are tired. They're also accepting the narrative given by the government of Egypt that, well, at least we're not Syria. At least we're not Iraq. At least we're not Libya. And this is actually when the average Egyptian looks around the region, this is what they think, that yes, things are not great right now, but they are certainly better than were we in Syria, were we in Iraq, were we in Libya. I think where Egypt is heading regionally, there is still a very tense fight in the Sinai Peninsula, in Egypt proper, and this is distracting Egyptian forces despite Sisi's call for a joint Arab force, was something that was promoted at the last Arab League summit. The Egyptian involvement in the operation in Yemen, the Egyptian strikes in Libya, and of course on the border. And so we do see the Egyptian military involved in many areas, but also spreading itself around in ways that might affect their ability to bring security to the Sinai Peninsula.
To the Sinai Peninsula, but that's, I think, where they're concentrating. As I mentioned, Zach Gold, wonderful having you with us this morning. Thank you for being here. When we get back, Prince Charles and Gerry Adams share a historic handshake. We'll take a closer look at that dramatic meeting between the two former foes. First, though, let's hear some more of this morning headlines. I-24 News Morning Edition on this May
20th.
Thank you.
Oh, I got it.
The bow tie has spoken. And just as a tease for the people watching this show, there will be several other bow ties on their way coming in different colors, so stay tuned. Yes. That said, Ami Kaufman is actually here to tell us the news that you missed while scanning the headlines, and there was quite a lot of it.
There was a lot. Let's get to it. Good morning, Yael. People claiming that Israel, is an apartheid state are probably going to have an easier job when they see this headline, the lead headline of Haaretz, that Israel begins separating Palestinian bus travel in the West Bank. What basically is going to happen is that Palestinian workers that come in from a checkpoint, for example, the Eyal checkpoint, when they go back to the West Bank after their day's work, they usually took a bus, the Afik bus, an Israeli bus company, back on Route 5 all the way with Israelis in the bus. Now that what they will have to do is they will have to go back to the checkpoint they entered and then take a Palestinian bus, because the Defense Ministry does not want Jews and Palestinians on the same bus traveling in the West Bank. So there will be total separation.
And I really, I think you said it well, that it, whatever one thinks, wherever one's alliances lie, so to speak, it does give a lot of ammunition to the critics of Netanyahu to say if there's, apartheid in Israel, there you go. But also, I think the fact that this is being implemented or being pushed forward towards implementation on the day that Mogherini, the EU chief, is coming to a visit in Israel is also spelling something very quite...
I wonder if she'll have any reaction to this.
In reaction to this one, this is the headline as she's landing in the Palestinian Authority and Israel.
She might have some reaction to this because the Palestinians are now reacting to the appointment of Silvan Shalom by Prime Minister Ben Netanyahu to head negotiations, the non-negotiations, of course, with Palestinians. Palestinian chief negotiator Saeb Erekat said that he saw no chance of renewing talks with the new Israeli government, which he described as a radical right government. Netanyahu believes in settlements, he said, and in violations and in continued arrests. So I don't think we're going to see anything moving forward on that track as well.
You have to admit his appointment is brilliant.
What?
Shalom.
Sylvan Shalom's appointment?
Ladies and gentlemen, pardon me.
Oh, you mean the word shalom?
The word shalom. His name is Shalom. Shalom means peace.
That is word.
Just a thought.
That is taking wordplay to a whole new level.
No, but it's
just a thought.
No, that's actually it's an interesting level of Netanyahu saying, but I appointed Mr. Peace.
Absolutely.
There you go. Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
And now one from the Daily Star. We've been hearing some news about, of course, Ramadi, the capital of the Anbar province, just outside of Baghdad, falling in the hands of ISIS.
Right.
At least some good news, or I guess you could say some good news, that the Iraqi forces have repelled an attack on the town of Khaldia, which is just between Ramadi and Fallujah.
Within the Anbar.
Within the Anbar province.
Right.
So a bit of good news there. ISIS not, totally in full momentum there.
From the Daily Star in Lebanon, I'm going to do
Yes.
some, I'm going to do some analysis behind the scenes. I think the Lebanese are also afraid of ISIS advances in the Middle East. But to me, it's fascinating to see how over the course of the last 2 weeks, and Ruthie being also head of the web at I-24 News, we've seen all these reports about ISIS #2 killed, that ISIS leader killed. But meanwhile, on the ground, they've taken the Anbar
other things
province.
are happening. Yeah, on the ground, they're gaining a lot of territory.
A lot of ground. Yeah. Okay.
Off to Iran. Jason Rezaian, the Washington Post correspondent, who we've been, he's been in jail now for 10 months.
For a while.
10
I'm
months.
so glad you brought this
So
story.
finally, he will be going on trial on May 26th. That's in less than a week.
Right.
With his wife, by the way, who is also a journalist, Yagana Salehi, and a third defendant. He has been accused of spy links with Iranian expatriates. The bad thing, I guess the bad news about this, besides being in 10 months in jail, of course,
in jail, being a journalist,
is that his judge, the presiding judge, his name is Abul Qasim Salavati, is known as the Judge of Death. He's imposed at least half a dozen capital sentences after the 2009 protests. This is pretty scary stuff for...
Scary stuff, but I'm thinking out loud because June 30th is approaching, and this is a very interesting trial leading up to that. Will the Iranians dare give a death sentence to a Washington Post reporter?
They might not carry it out, but they might give it. Look, don't forget that Iran has the dubious title of second in the world in terms of
in death penalties,
after China. Yeah.
Right.
Good morning to all. Yes.
Yeah. Off to my home state of Texas. The Cossacks.
And you admitted on the air.
Very proudly.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
You don't talk Texas.
Yeah.
I lost my drawl a few years ago. I'm trying to bring it back. But on to a serious note, the Cossacks and the Bandidos, the biker gangs, the feuding biker gangs, which killed 9 people in Waco, Texas, and injured 18. Nobody
it's like a
really knew.
movie.
Yes, especially because it happened at a restaurant called Twin Peaks Restaurant. Nobody knows exactly how this thing started, but police are now saying it might have started over a parking dispute. Really territorial turf.
It's excuse me, it was a restaurant.
A restaurant? Right.
Twin Peaks.
Sorry. No, not a laughing matter.
Funny,
because
funny,
Ruthie just gestured to herself. A restaurant. Okay. What is a restaurant?
Well, I'll let Ruthie take it from here.
A restaurant is like Hooters?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like Hooters.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
They had hundreds of bikers.
Totally not funny. And the name of that place should be changed to Wacko.
To Wacko. Yes.
Yeah, especially after the Branch Davidian thing, which killed 85 people. And they, by the way, 170 bikers were arrested, and the police had trouble getting them into jail and booking them without, and killing themselves there in jail.
Right.
This thing is rocking the extreme sports world. There's a very famous base jumper. His name is Dean Potter. So famous that the National Geographic has made even a movie about him. And he killed himself. Well, he died in an accident as he attempted to base jump from a cliff in Yosemite. He was doing what you call, I think we have some video of this.
Diving?
This is called it's called base diving, but this is a wingsuit jump.
Oh my God!
This is a footage
oh my
where he had his
God!
dog.
No, did the dog survive?
I'm not sure that on this jump he had his
the dog. Okay.
But
that's it. And oh my!
This is how it's done. He opens the parachute. Now base jumping is illegal in Yosemite, and just about a few days before he jumped, he said on his social media that it's an old rule and should be changed to reflect modern day. I'm actively pursuing the legalization of human flight in our national parks.
And then he went ahead and died.
And hopefully more people will lobby with me. And this is what happened with him and another man that jumped with him.
Okay. Wow.
And just lastly, a really last quick one. Akiva Aldar, a arts journalist of many years, was run over by a rock star in Sydney, Australia. He's okay. He broke an arm and a leg. But me and Ruthie, I think, worked with him for a few years when we were both in Haaretz. This guy was the head of
so
In Excess.
I know.
And, you know what he's saying, because they got his right arm, so he's saying, I'm finally going to be a real leftist.
That's right. That's a great answer.
No, but this is, if I were to go, that's the way I want to go. Ami, locked in studio with us as we move along. Moving to the United Kingdom, a historic meeting between Prince Charles and Gerry Adams, the veteran Irish Republican, who was allegedly in the IRA's ruling army council when the Provisionalists murdered the prince's great-uncle, Lord Louis Mountbatten, in 1979, have met. In a historic moment for Anglo-Irish affairs, Charles met and shook hands with the Sinn Féin leader who once justified the Mountbatten murder. Now, the pair smiled at each other as they shook hands for 13 seconds, it was counted, inside a packed hall on the campus of the National University of Ireland, Galway. We are joined in studio, as you saw, by i24 News senior news editor Ruthie Sinai. Ruthie, good morning.
Again.
Let's take a look at the following report and break it down from there.
History was made in Galway, Ireland, Tuesday, as the heir of the British throne, Prince Charles, met Gerry Adams, the leader of the Sinn Féin, which was fought to get the British to leave Northern Ireland.
Conflict is behind us, but the hurt isn't behind us, and I'd like to think that today's engagement will be a symbolic but also a practical step of facing into the future.
It, however, is not the first time a Sinn Féin leader has met a member of the royal family, since in 2012 Queen Elizabeth met Martin McGuinness, a former commander of the Northern Irish IRA, which is often seen as Sinn Féin's armed wing. For Prince Charles, the meeting may also close a dreadful cycle. In 1979, his great-uncle, Lord Louis Mountbatten, was murdered by the IRA as part of the organization's bitter violent war against the British. Adams expressed hesitant regret for the murder before his meeting with the prince.
At the time, one couldn't help but be regretful about the loss, particularly when there are children involved. But I don't think it's an occasion. It's a very personal. It's a human occasion.
Charles is considered a notorious figure among Irish nationalists due to his position as Colonel-in-Chief of the British Army's Parachute Regiment, which was involved in shooting Irish Catholic civilians in Northern Ireland in 1972, an event known as Bloody Sunday. But recently, Charles and other members of royal family have been trying to improve their ties with Northern Ireland. In 1998, the UK signed the Good Friday Agreement with most of the Northern Irish parties to end the sectarian conflict there. But some extremists in Northern Ireland refuse to recognize the truce, and the tension remains.
We are also joined from London by i24 News correspondent Jonathan Sachidati. Jonathan, good morning to you.
Good morning, Al.
Well, clearly that handshake was counted, 13 seconds exactly. Reactions this morning in and around Britain. I mean, this is being taken as a very big deal, right?
Yes, yesterday, 4 years after the Queen made her historic visit to the Irish Republic, Prince Charles and Gerry Adams shared that historic handshake and afterwards, importantly, a 15-minute private meeting. Mr. Adams is the Sinn Féin president and the man behind the Irish Republican movement, so this significant meeting is intended to solidify the spirit of reconciliation essential for carrying through peace into the future.
Peace into the future, but, you know, there were also some criticism, Jonathan, obviously, you are staying with us, like, Ruthie, actually, you take it away. You brought something to our attention.
Yeah, there was a cartoon by Steve Bell, who's a political cartoonist in The Guardian this morning, if we could just bring it up, which, kind of, on the one hand, it's a very hopeful moment, this handshake, which is purely symbolic, of course. And I think, Jonathan, I was scanning front pages this morning in the British media, and they all have photos, big photos of the handshake, but there's, no text. I mean, it's really all symbolism, and as you mentioned, the 13 seconds that were counted. But this cartoon kind of points to the feelings that are still there. Basically saying, yes, we can smile and we can shake hands, but we're not going to forget, the troubles and the horrors
of,
Yeah.
And speaking of the feelings, Jonathan, I'm wondering with you, because you know what, I became a journalist many years ago, sort of on the heels of the end of this conflict, which was a bloody one for many, many years. When it comes to this situation, when it comes to Ireland versus versus Britain, nowadays, where do things stand?
Well, it's important to look at what happened yesterday as a signifier of that, and both men are understood to have expressed regret for the lives lost in Northern Ireland's troubles. Almost 36 years after the IRA murdered Prince Charles's great-uncle, Earl Mountbatten. In August 1979, Earl Mountbatten of Burma was killed when an IRA bomb was placed on his boat off the coast of the small fishing village of Mullaghmore in the Republic of Ireland. And he was a very personal contact of Prince Charles's. He was really his mentor. So it's symbolic that even in the royal family, there's this sense of great loss of somebody very dear to Prince Charles. And yet, this spirit of reconciliation is what is rising above all of that for this moment when a man who was previously seen as fronting the armed resistance against Britain is shaking hands with the future King of Great Britain, who has personally lost that great uncle. We can see exactly where the spirit of peace and reconciliation is going in the future.
Now, it's interesting, Ruthie, with me in studio, that people always compare Tony Blair, for example, when he signed up as Middle East envoy several years ago. He's always comparing Britain and Ireland and that conflict. That if it's possible there, it can also be done here.
Yeah. But I think it's only a surface deep kind of comparison. I don't think the issues. I mean, there is true religion and
because people would say that on its face they're religion, religious divide, whatnot, but apples and oranges.
No, but it is really apples and oranges. I have to say that one other thing, I was looking up their birth dates. They're exactly the same age, the Prince and Gerry Adams. Yes, they were born the same year, 1948, I believe, and it really is, sort of a new, kind of a new era. These two war horses, as it were. Charles, who was commander of the Paratroop Battalion, etc., and then Gerry
and you know what?
Adams.
To not to sound banal, but of course say, well, it is possible, so to speak.
Yeah. You can see it also in Northern Ireland. You know, I mean, it's been pretty calm.
Pretty calm for part of the knock on wood.
Yeah.
Jonathan Sachidati, thank you for being with us on this. I have a sneaking suspicion I'm going to see you very soon. Ruthie, thank you as always. Ami, we love you.
Me.
Yes. Exactly. When we get back, ladies and gentlemen of the press and the viewers and the users and the audience, everything you need to know about the Eurovision 2015 Song Contest. It's sacred. Stay with us. First, the news. Welcome back. It is still Wednesday, May 20th, 2015. This is still the morning edition on I-24 News. I am still Yael Levy. Thank you for staying with us for the biggest moment of my life, okay? It's that time of year, the sparkly extravaganza that is the Eurovision Song Contest. This year, the singing competition is celebrating its 60th. Wow. Its 60th anniversary. Wait, there's a specialist on it. Therefore, it promises to be bigger and, shall we say, more colorful than ever. The competition is being held in Vienna, and we will see Australia join the competition. We'll touch on that shortly. I'm trying to contain my excitement. Why it is still called the Eurovision is beyond me, but let's go to the real experts to hear more about it, and for that reason, we're joined in studio by Eurovision specialist Amit Dekkel. Amit, good morning.
Good morning.
You do have a day job, but we are going to refer to you as the Eurovision specialist. Yeah. And, of course, Ami Kaufman with us in studio as well. And the bow tie is very excited. But I-24 News, UK correspondent, European expert, whatnot, okay? Very, 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 very intelligent man by day, very big Eurovision fan at night. Okay, Jonathan Satchadati, with the flags behind you. Jonathan, good morning to you. And before we start anything, let's start with the straight report. Last night, the halftime, so to speak, the first halftime of the Eurovision. I'm sure you were watching. Tell us the low time, okay? The lowdown, Jonathan, of what basically, went down yesterday.
Well, good morning, Tel Aviv. Here are the votes of the London jury.
Yes.
Last night, the first semi-final is the first part of this extravaganza of song, camp, and flashing lights. Yes. And we saw that the following countries got through: Albania, Armenia, Russia, Romania, Hungary, Greece, Estonia, Georgia, Serbia, and Belgium. And that means, of course, that the others were eliminated: Moldova, Netherlands, Belarus, Denmark, Finland, and, tragically, the former Yugoslav Republic of Macedonia.
And I have to, wow! And we must say, tragically. Okay, we're going to take this now and regroup. And I want to ask, seriously, I mean, this is it last night. We saw those pictures. Amit and Jonathan with me. We have to remind people that Eurovision is sacred, and it was sacred. And we've seen it change in the most bizarre and, shall I say, terrifying way over the course of the last several years. How many countries are now in the Eurovision?
I'm not going to use the bad words you mentioned. Why terrible? Why? Such a great show. It's one of the most popular shows in the world. Of course, one of the most longest-running competitions.
There's no criteria. Everybody's in it now.
Yeah, everybody, all over Europe. If you go back 20, 30 years ago, in the 60s, 70s, 80s, there were 20 countries in the competition, 2.5 hours, that's it. Today, you have 3 nights, 3 contests, and it's...
But it makes it, I mean, Jonathan with me, help me out here, because didn't you... I used to dress up for the Eurovision, living in Tel Aviv.
With feathers?
I'd sit with a nice dress, watching... Yes.
This competition last year was won by a bearded transvestite called Conchita Wurst. What more can you want from European Union?
But she wasn't the first. She wasn't the first, yeah.
This is the in-out referendum that Great Britain has been promised. And here it has arrived only a few days into David Cameron's new leadership. This is the most exciting moment of the year for people who like televised international events that don't involve balls or sports. So here we have a celebration of music, high camp, and terrible Europop, which everybody can join in with. There's statistics and voting for the geeks. There's flashing lights, beautiful music, fancy costumes for the fashionistas. And, of course, there's a little bit of music for those people who enjoy something terrible to help them sleep that night as they go to bed seeing the new winner. And who will it be this year? For example, the Finnish band, who are hotly tipped, entirely made up of people with learning difficulties, has now been eliminated, which means that we're looking at some of the other favorites, like Sweden and, controversially, Australia, which has been allowed to enter just because, well, why the hell not? I mean, if you've got used to Israel being part of Europe in the Eurovision, why not let's mix things up a bit and put in Australia? Huge fans of the contest for many years, and now able to compete. And many are saying, able to win. What's going to happen then?
Exactly. No, I mean, there's a headline about that as well.
There's a headline in The Independent. What happens if Australia wins? I think we have a picture of it. Because Australia is here like just for a one-off because of the 60th contest, and it's like they're big fans in Australia.
Right.
So they're saying that if Australia wins, they will host it jointly with another EU country. Yeah. And not only that, Australia might even have the right to choose which EU country they want to host it with, and they're hoping that if Australia wins, they will choose Britain to host it there. So the Brits are hoping that Australia wins as well.
I'm sorry, that sounds to me really rigged. That sounds to me like something with the Commonwealth of people like that great. And I want to take this back to the past.
Yeah.
Okay, because in those years, Jonathan, you're still here, don't worry. In the past, when I used to dress up and, we invited, I don't think people understand how huge it was in Israel, rightfully mentioned by Jonathan, when Israel entered the competition, you'd hear people cheering from the streets.
Yeah.
And, take us back to how important it was and what it meant to the country of Israel for the songs that won.
First of all, Israel was an empire. in the Eurovision. Won twice in the 70s, finished twice second in the beginning of the 80s. So Israel was an empire and people loved it. They were sitting in front of the television, empty streets outside, and just want to be part of Europe. And that's what's happening to the Russian and the former Yugoslavian countries today.
Right.
They are so excited to be part of it. When Israel was in the 70s in the contest.
No, and we're looking at some pictures. By the way, that is singing there is Ami Kaufman back in 1970.
That's me.
That's you, yeah.
1978 in Paris, Israel Cohen is bringing the first victory to Israel. And I can tell you that Israel is still today one of the most popular countries in the contest.
Seriously?
Yeah, yeah. Still.
When I watch it, everybody says, "Oh, they hate us. That's why they give us
they
such low
hate us
points."
because
the music sent in is well, I'm not gonna say it.
First of all, Israel is singing in English this year, so I think it says
in English.
yeah,
Israel
exactly.
has one
In
of
the past, the countries
songs this year.
It does, Jonathan? Really?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, look at that. I mean, those were the days. And also, Amit, you reminded us that back in the day, Jonathan, you're loving this, aren't you? Look at that. Those were the days. But there was also, because Amit, you bring us back to the one and the best of, the best, I think, Eurovision of all time was 1979. Okay.
Yeah, in Binyanei Hauma in Jerusalem.
Hallelujah.
Yes. Look at the list of the songs. Socrates Superstar, and Gingis Khan, and Disco Tango, and Hallelujah, and many, many great songs. And for the fans and for the experts, this Eurovision Song Contest was the best ever. The stage was very unique. Today's.
No, I remember being a kid, and when this came up, we were looking at it going, wow, that is so, that is so modern. Look at what channel we're
exactly,
it's pretty high tech.
Isn't it high tech?
Those days, it was so unique, so modern. Yeah, yeah.
And look at those suspenders. And listen, I want to tell you guys that those suspenders, okay, were actually the first shot out of the gate for what eventually was one of the biggest wins. And we're going to cue in Dana International. I want us all to listen because, Jonathan, you mentioned you won last year, but it was Israel who launched, equality and whatnot with the one and only Dana International. Let's take a look. Okay. Yes. But first of all, Dana International, apropos, Jonathan, I'm sure that, you remember that, and that was that was the first groundbreaking moment of the Eurovision, wasn't it?
Well, it's not the first. There are many. This is the wonderful thing about Eurovision. While it is, of course, a great laugh, it has enormous support from the gay community across Europe and the world. And this was shown when Dana International was able to win. And then last year, as I said, slightly more controversially in a way, it was somebody that looked like a woman but had a full beard and is in fact a man. Israel, for all its unpopularity in some senses across Europe and the world, has won 3 times, 1978, 1979, and 1998. Great Britain, for all its former empire, does pretty terribly these days. True. And this year should be no exception. Our song is absolutely rubbish.
I agree, yeah.
But, we've won 5 times, 1967, 1969, 1976, 1981, and, of course, 1991. Once using an American singer, Australia's entered now, but, frankly, 2 of the previous singers have been Australian, with Gina G and Olivia Newton-John. So, it's really a mix-up. It's a proper sign of what the world can do if we come together and just put aside our differences and concentrate on fun. Of course, until the voting, when that giant scoreboard comes up. And then we get to see exactly the nil points, the 12 points, and we get to see exactly which countries really hate which other countries and which countries love other countries. Because a couple of years ago,
a lot
they
more
were
every year, don't you?
Yes, but I think it starts and ends if you have a good song. If you got a good song, you're going to win or you're going to get very high in the competition. Yeah, yeah. There are politics, of course. There are blocks, the Russian bloc, the Yugoslavian bloc, the Cyprus and Greek bloc.
And now the Australian bloc.
Yeah, we don't have any friends in the competition, but still we won 3 times. And I can tell you that I've been to the contest 10 times. I went to Helsinki, to Tallinn, to Riga,
You're a freak of nature.
To Athens. And I can tell you, if I could even describe, to describe to you the madness going there. It's amazing. People love it, and it's a song contest.
But speaking, it's a song contest at the end of the day, but as Jonathan, and I really admire your national pride, given the fact that you've admitted that the British song is rubbish, but so is the Israeli one, isn't it? I mean, have you heard it?
I've heard it. I mean, I like Nadav Gach. I think he's a really amazing singer. I liked him on the reality show that he became famous on. He's a really good singer. He's a very good singer.
Okay, we can look at the Israeli song for a short while. Let's go.
Before I leave, let me show you Tel Aviv.
No, before I leave, let me show you Tel Aviv. But listen, I don't care. Jonathan Satchadati listened to that and he got down and jiggy with it.
Oh, yeah.
Okay?
What do you want from me?
I think that Israel
180 million people
something
watched
from
this.
the last failures in the Eurovision, and they brought a song in English, only in English, 3 minutes, never happened before.
Yeah.
And I think it's got a good chance to qualify tomorrow to the final.
You think?
At least, yeah. I don't think it's going to win or get to the top 10. But I think it's
I haven't
it's
heard
a nice
it, but
song.
I hear Estonia's on flames this year.
Yeah.
But that's like, okay, boys, I mean, you're locked with us in studio. We could talk about this all night.
Yeah.
Jonathan, listen, I mean, I want you to get really excited for tonight. Fabulous, fabulous, that background behind you. Thank you for being with us this morning. I'm crazy in love with you today. Okay, Ami, with the viral spiral that is the web review in the time that we have.
In the little time that we have, it's going to be hard to top that one. Madonna put on Instagram a picture of a Jewish and Arab men about to kiss. And this went really viral. Yeah. See, a Braslav guy and a guy with a kafia. And she said this image is love hashtag Rebel Hearts. And Rebel Hearts is the name of her new album coming out. So this is kind of like a promotion for her album.
See, I love Madonna. I think she's a fabulous woman. I know we have little time, but that, with all due respect, and it's wonderful and great.
Yeah.
Can she just butt out of the conflict?
Really? Yeah, okay.
I don't know. I mean, it's...
Just let her do what she knows how to do best.
Exactly. Will you sing, and that's okay, with all the respect. Madonna, a career not launched through the Eurovision. I mean, you also said it was a place that launched career. What does it do these days?
Yeah, you had Celine Dion and ABBA and Olivia Newton-John and Julio Iglesias. And
Julio Iglesias?
Yeah,
Wow.
Yeah, also was there, yeah.
ABBA,
ABBA, yes. And of course, Celine Dion, but that's a whole different show. Yes, really quick.
Yes, well, you have kids and you obviously know what a onesie is.
Oh, yes.
But do you know what a suitsie is?
No, what's a suitsie?
Well, let's see. I have a video of someone showing you what a suitsie is.
Let's look at suitsie. Oh, my God.
Okay.
Would you want a suitsie as a grown man unless you're still in diapers?
I'm not totally sure, but apparently, I don't know. I'm kind of tempted, to be honest.
You're kind of tempted. Yeah. No, but I mean, I don't think you need a suitsie that comes with a bow tie.
With a bow tie.
No, it looks like a Eurovision act. I guess.
It looks like a Eurovision act. I would do spawn for him. And yes, one last one real quick.
One last one. In Chechnya, there's a campaign about... there was a warlord that married a 17-year-old girl.
Saw that.
And he said, and there was a guy from Moscow, the child rights commissioner, said that he married her because Chechen women are shriveled by the age of 27. So all these Chechen women are putting these posts now on Instagram with the hashtag wrinkled women, and they show how beautiful they are.
Amen.
And I think it's a really cool campaign.
No, the fabulous campaign. Shriveled at 27. What should I say? I'm 28. Wonderful. Amit, thank you for being with us. Ami as well. I hope we can show you still a little bit of Hallelujah, but we'll sing you off when we get back. Sports, FIFA, and what is the the mess that is the Middle East within that compound, and also. Pitch Perfect tops 2 in the weekend box offices. I don't know who they are. Stay with us. First, the news. I-24 News Morning Edition, the place you should be on this May 20th, 2015, because I'm sitting in the studio with 2 young men. Yes.
Yeah, that's
who seem incredibly excited to be.
That's accurate. We are young.
I know, but you know, you're sitting with a blonde woman. Yeah, you're not rolling with me. Whatever. We are joined in studio by the Culture Magazine editor Avri Rosentzvi, who should be much more excited to see me.
Good morning. I'm always excited to see you.
Exactly. Culture Magazine editor, aficionado. What do you have for me today?
Well,
darling?
We're gonna start with the new movie about Steve Jobs.
Yet another one.
The second movie about Steve Jobs.
Is it better than the first?
Well, we only have a trailer.
I know,
so
but
we don't know.
Watch it. Yeah,
it has to be better than the first.
Yeah, it can't be worse than that.
It cannot be worse than the first. Let's watch a bit of the trailer.
The only one who sees the world the same way I do. No one sees the world the same way you do. Sees the world the same way I do.
Wow, that is a cast, okay?
This
is a cast because I will say this for you. The first movie had Ashton Kutcher.
It was very bad.
Can't
do
worse. Exactly.
It was a really bad movie. You know, I watched it on Netflix and I watched like the first hour and then
I ordered the damn thing on VOD. Can you imagine how lowly my life is?
Okay, so to wash away this experience, we have an all-star cast this time around. We have Michael Fassbender playing the man himself, Steve Jobs. We have Seth Rogen playing the Woz, Steve Wozniak, who was the co-founder of Apple, who then left, and maybe most importantly for film lovers, we have Aaron Sorkin writing the screenplay.
Everybody's going to Aaron Sorkin practically becoming like the film biographer of like the digital age in some ways.
Not just the digital age, sort of you know, he started with Charlie Wilson's War. He likes
Fabulous
to do
film.
people who are sort of
well-renowned,
iconoclasts and people
but
who
the
go
Social
against.
Network was it was
a very important movie.
Yeah.
I agree. It's directed by Danny Boyle. It was supposed to be
this is like Oscar written all over it.
Yeah, it was supposed to be directed by Social Network director David Fincher, and then he fell by the wayside. I don't know why, but it should be a very, very interesting movie, and it should erase all memory of the first one. It actually takes place during one night. The announcement of the iMac in 1998. I don't know if there'll be flashbacks or what, but it's sort of.
So it's like the whole thing is one night.
Yeah, the whole thing is the one night. He's triumphant, sort of the first time he sort of stood in front of a crowd as the new Steve Jobs, returning to Apple as not yet a winner, but and then everything that happened, you know, we know what the iMac did and what happened. So
fabulous.
It should be a very interesting movie.
Just to trash on the first one a little bit more, it's you
can never have too much.
You can't. Ashton Kutcher, when he was playing Steve Jobs. I remember the first show. I was like, it's the guy from Dude, Where's My Car?
Yeah.
You know, it just
and that '70s show. You can't be like the really dumb guy.
Idiot. Yeah.
Intellectual.
I can never. Yeah. No.
Michael Friedman, you can relate.
Yes.
Okay. Yes. And
moving on. Well, this weekend was a big box office surprise. We had two movies coming out.
Right.
Pitch Perfect 2 and Mad Max Fury Road. And Pitch Perfect 2 bitch slapped Mad Max Fury Road.
I just said bitch slapped.
At the box office. It's really beautiful to behold. No, we heard very good things about Mad Max. I haven't seen it yet.
I know. But
yeah.
Pitch Perfect 2, we have a trailer.
Did it?
Yeah. Okay. So let's watch the trailer and then I'll tell you how well it did.
How well it did, because Avi does everything I said. Let's watch the trailer.
We are coming to you live from the nation's capital, where the Barton University Bellas are performing for the President of the United States on his birthday. I came in like a wrecking ball.
Oh no, she has no underwear on.
Oh my God.
We have a commando situation. She's turning.
No.
Brace yourself.
She's coming.
Okay, Pitch Perfect 2. I have to admit that I have not seen Pitch Perfect 1.
It's very good, and it sort of became a phenomenon, as we can see. But, okay, let's start with the numbers. The movie made $70 million on its opening weekend, which is the second best opening for a female director. And the best opening for a first-time director.
Okay.
The first is, unfortunately, 50 Shades of Grey. But this is very interesting. You know, people talk a lot about how Mad Max is very feminist, and we have Charlize Theron. But this really is, you know, it's directed by a woman, Elizabeth Banks, who co-stars in the movie, an actor and first-time director.
Elizabeth Banks directed it?
Yes.
Good for her.
We have a female writer who came from 30 Rock, from the Tina Fey school. A lot of really funny jokes in this one, and we have, of course, an all-star cast.
This is Mad Max that we're seeing right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we have an all-star cast of women, including Anna Kendrick, and of course the very, very funny Rebel Wilson.
Yeah. But the Rebel Wilson that in Pitch Perfect 2, where did we see Rebel Wilson before? That I loved her, and she was in Bridesmaids.
She was in Bridesmaids.
She was one of the.
She was in Pitch Perfect 1, of course, and that sort of pushed her into stardom. You know, it's nice to see a movie sort of geared at young teenage girls, basically, I guess, with an all-female cast, getting such a nice, you know, showing at the box office, and maybe we'll get more franchises led by women. That should be very interesting. Also at the box office this week, we should say Avengers reached more than $1 billion, becoming the 8th, Avengers 2 becoming the 8th highest grossing.
Who saw it already? Did you guys see it?
I saw it. I liked it. People hated it. I really liked it.
Really?
But I'm a huge nerd, as we know, so. But,
Michael, did you like it? Did you see it?
I haven't seen it yet.
You haven't seen it yet. Michael will be the defining moment of that, because he clearly is not a nerd.
Yeah, I'm waiting to see his... I want to see his idea of about Pitch Perfect 2.
Yes.
Girls singing a cappella.
I think it'll be good.
But you know what? Like the cheerleader movie. What was the
cheerleader with the blonde thing with
bring it
on.
Yeah. This movie and that movie used the sports movie really interestingly, like the sort of the genre of sports movie, the competition. They both sort of use it in very interesting ways. So you might actually like it. You know, it's a competition movie.
I like my chick flicks. It's all right.
You like your chick flicks. Thank you. Yes,
and the last thing we're going to talk about is for the geeks in the crowd.
Yes.
We have the first reveal from the World of Warcraft movie.
Yay! Woohoo! Okay.
As you know, Warcraft, a very, very successful video game franchise.
Of course.
Which is now being turned into a movie. But
finally.
You played this game, right?
Yeah, of course. Yeah? Yes. Your first look at the original Warcraft. Whoa.
Yeah. This is Ogrim, the ogre.
Yeah.
And it's sort of very interesting because this is like ILM's sort of return to full CG figures after the Hulk, which was very successful in the Avengers. A very, very cool character. And this character is modeled on actor Robert Kaczynski. They actually took his features and morphed them.
How sad for him. Yeah.
So sad.
Yeah, that means, Michael, you can one day turn into a really, really ugly monster.
No, but it should be a very interesting movie. Duncan Jones is directing this movie, which made Moon, which is a very good movie.
Right.
And you know who is the son of Duncan Jones?
No, I don't.
He's David Bowie's son.
Really?
Yeah.
That was the most exciting thing for me on this item, I have to say. That's the one person I know.
David Bowie's son is directing the Warcraft movie.
Thank God for that. No, that's important information.
Yeah.
Avri, I know you know nothing about sports, but you are locked.
Go team.
Yeah, you are. Well, you and I both. You are locked in studio as we are joined by the fabulous.
This is the time to get educated on sports.
True.
Educate us.
And Michael Friedman with us of the Sports Magazine. He's not only gorgeous, he's not only pretty, he also knows everything about sports. Yes.
So anyone who's a basketball lover, this is
not us.
This is the time. This is the time to follow and get into it because we're now in the Eastern and Western Conference finals. Big games. Yesterday, or just several hours ago, we had Game 1. The Warriors played the Rockets, and it was It was a very good match. The Rockets were up almost close to 16 points at one point in the first half.
And then?
And then, there's always that and then.
And then, but
there's one guy named Steph Curry who just will get his team back into it. The game, he soared.
Turned around a 16-point lead from the other team. Wow.
And that's the NBA. You know, you go 16 points up, and just like that, things go back to the other way.
Yeah.
It was 58-55 at the first half, but with the Warriors going up, things went their way. Exciting fourth quarter. The final score was 110 to 106. And actually, Game 2 will be tomorrow, and Steph Curry spoke after the game about what a good win it was.
Let's hear what Steph Curry had to say.
It's a great competitive environment, and obviously we don't guard each other very much, but when you're out there, you kind of get riled up with the back and forth that might happen, like tonight, or just the will to want to win the game even more, because you know how great of a player he is and what it takes to beat a team like Houston with a guy like James.
I want to say, noting before anything else, that guy is gorgeous.
And he's young.
Gorgeous, yummy. Okay, but
you
back.
know what? Actually, a good name for a science fiction movie: Warriors versus Rockets.
Yeah.
Yes,
it could work.
It
so
could
you
work.
take a little sports and bring it to the culture and the sci-fi.
Yeah, sure. Okay, but he giving the usual sound, but we played hard and that's why we won.
I mean, he's led this team on his shoulders.
How old is he?
He's
in
young.
his 20s now.
He's in his early 20s. I mean, he was one of the best college basketball players.
Okay.
The guy shoots threes so easily.
Yeah.
And we have another game tonight. It's the Eastern Conference, the Hawks versus the Cavaliers. Big storyline is LeBron James. He came back to Cleveland, his hometown. Can he win it?
I even know this. Can he turn it around?
And David Blatt, Israeli coach. Who
and
knows
a
what
Jew.
What can happen with this? It's going to be a very exciting Eastern Conference Finals.
And see if Blatt can carry the team off, with LeBron.
It'd be very special.
Very special. No time for the report, but there is something happening also in the Middle East, straight where we're sitting, and that would be in Israel, and we're talking about FIFA.
FIFA.
Yes.
Blatt, Sepp Blatter coming here, huge. Basically, the storyline for him is he wants to bring peace. He spoke to Bibi. He spoke about having a possible game where Israel and Palestine will play together in Zurich, and the mission is really positive. But what the big
there's a big overlying umbrella in this, because FIFA's threatening, right?
FIFA is getting a proposal to have Israel being taken out of FIFA, to not be allowed to play in the Champions League or in the UEFA, anything to do with football.
With football, and I think people, it's hard. It's not hard, but to drive this point home is that FIFA, with all these condemnations and attempts to boycott Israel from things, FIFA would really hurt.
Yes,
FIFA would be,
and it hurt the sport. Unfortunately, Sepp Blatter has kind of taken a side with Israel and is really trying to avoid this at all costs. He's actually meeting today in Ramallah with the President Abbas. So who knows what will go from there? But
Sepp Blatter, I mean, at the end of the day, it would be his decision, whether to boycott or not. Or,
I mean, they take a vote. But all in all, I mean, his words speak louder, and what he says and what he thinks is most important, and that this really would be detrimental for FIFA and for football. And Bibi has gone out and said that, they have to separate, all the political nonsense. And at the end of the day, it's a sport. It's football.
At the end of the day, it's a sport, but I think, sadly we'd agree, and I think, Avi, even when it comes to theater and arts and whatnot, where I think also in that realm, Israelis or who are in that profession are afraid of being boycotted from festivals.
They are boycotted.
There's
a lot, but I think we can't say that sport is not political, but I think art is a little more political than sport. You can't really separate. Even people want to say art and music. It's beyond politics. It's more of a political arena.
And I think, though, Michael, as you said, what he's trying to do, that FIFA, what he's here saying, don't politicize the sports. At the end of the day, it's the Middle East. Everything is politicized.
And he opposes, the suspension vote. saying Israel has not broken anything that FIFA, political issues. So really, it's something that needs to
be addressed.
There's also a lot more money on the line.
Yes.
than
than anything else, and that will most likely define the decision at the end of the day. Sadly, all the time we have. But we do leave you with these important news that you just heard here. And of course, do not forget to check us out on all those social networks, Twitter, Facebook, if you've missed anything on this show. And tomorrow morning, tune in for another edition of the Morning Edition, the place to be, because that is where you get to meet gorgeous young men such as Avery and Michael. So, of course, thank you. Now, the news. Stay with us.